if you could do these two things, it's very likely, it's very likely you won't be in the statistic. I
So
think a lot of
almost
people.
1 in 4 students who are in full-time undergraduate studies in the US drop out. Almost 55% of part-time students in their first year drop out. And this is an extremely scary situation when we're talking about that high of a dropout rate in university.
Right. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so I think this is obviously a complex issue and why people drop out so fast, or why there's such a high dropout rate for first-time, full-time undergraduate students, and even more so in part-time. So I don't think we'll be able to get into the nitty-gritty and the specifics of why people are dropping out. I'm pretty sure this is a very nuanced topic,
Right.
but I think at least on the part that we can speak on is studying habits, right? And we did fairly well,
Right.
not to boost or anything.
We can speak to how to like lower the chances that this kind of thing happens to you, right? Because sometimes life happens and it's out of your control. Like you can't control maybe something happening in your family or you're getting sick or something like that. But we can talk to you about what we did to get through.
So that, okay, to me, what I looked for was support. Support as in from my from the friends that I developed with, right? Obviously, I had my own studying techniques where I read the textbook. Then what I typically did was I made questions myself, thinking what the professor would want to ask on an exam. A lot of the times I was able to guess it correctly. So I kind of already knew the answers for the questions because I was able to predict what questions the professor would ask.
But how do you even begin doing something like that? Like I feel like that's harder than you're making it sound. That's like not easy.
Okay, so for example, you want to try to think about big concept questions, right? So for example, let's say in biology, they'll be like, okay, this might be even more juvenile than it is, but like, what specific pathway is responsible for ATP production, right? These are pretty core concepts within the field of biology, at least in first year undergrad. So trying to generalize your textbook and your lecture slides into major concepts and then very nitty-gritty definition questions, that's how you're really able to predict what type of questions the professor is going to ask, specifically when you're in the life sciences, right? Because life sciences is heavily on memory. And obviously there's application questions as well, but being able to understand larger concepts and then also memorizing specific definitions really helps you to be able to try to predict some of the questions your professor is going to ask in these kinds of fields.
Okay.
So that's what I did in terms of my studying, right?
Like
I
right
read
from first year or
right
did you?
from first year. That's actually just something I was able to. Actually, no,
Wow.
first year, first semester, I tried memorizing everything, and then uh, after my first set of midterms, I kind of got the grasp of the type of questions professors typically asked in my program, and then that's how I adjusted my thinking style for my future midterms and final exams. But I think what was also just as important was like university is a very stressful time, and I think a lot of the emotional baggage that can be built upon immediately after the first sets of midterms, because oftentimes people go into universities from being a very successful high school student to then becoming a subpar undergraduate student, and the emotional toll that can have may even end up being one of the reasons why people drop out of university, right? So having that emotional support around friends that care about you who are going through the same situation, I think is just as important as your studying habits, because you being in like not top health, but like being able to handle stress with your friends really allows you to study better and to kind of look at university in a different lens.
Yeah, I agree completely. Okay, I'll get into a little bit of my situation. And again, what works well is you are like the life sciences and so on, and I was engineering, civil engineering, so that's like just problems and stuff like that. For me, very similar friendship is critical, having that support group. And I think when it comes to finding friends, it's about who do you think shares your values. Be assertive in a sense. Like you can ask a person, hey, do you want to be partners on this project? Because there's a lot of other people who are in the exact same situation as you. And when you work with somebody, you can see, okay, do I want to be friends with this person? You can build that relationship.
Yeah.
But when it came to just studying, like every little step is more important than the big final exam, big midterm. So I loved sitting in the front of the class, taking notes, doing all the problem sets, asking help. If you do that every day, you end up doing less work because you're not catching up. You're already caught up. So that's what I would do. I would just sit in front of the class. I would take notes. I would really focus during the class. No distraction, no cell phone, no nothing. And lucky for us, when we were in university, we probably had our first cell phone at 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So it was like, I didn't have that habit of, I gotta check this and like multitasking. It was just bang, you know? So the first thing I would say is like that granular approach. Every little problem matters. Your problem set, your quiz, your test, your midterm, your final. And the good thing is you can troubleshoot too, because you're troubleshooting at any of those steps you struggle, you solve that right then. So let's say you struggle during a problem set, don't wait until a quiz, you know? So I would say that was the first thing. Second thing is I had guidance because I had older sisters who all graduated from the same school or who all went to the same school. And they've emphasized that it is important not to waste time on subjects and quizzes that are low weighted, like low weight. So if you're in high school, you want to get 100% on everything, right?
Yeah.
In university, so you can accept that sometimes this thing I'm not going to give that much respect to. Something that's 5%, okay, we're going to have to wing that because we got 15, 20% coming down the line.
Yeah.
So I would say those things are, the steps are simple, but they're not easy. Like it's simple to like go to the class, sit in the front, ask questions, do the homework, do the problem sets, do the quizzes, do the tests, do the exams. Simple, but not easy because people get distracted. They want to do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, you have to be strategic. And actually, to your first point too, right? It's actually pretty interesting because, like, I think there's research that shows that people who sit in the first 10 rows of those classes typically do way better than, like, people who sit in the back of the class. Which kind of makes sense because if you think about it, right? Like, obviously we didn't have cell phones from, like, high school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that pattern, but even someone just sitting in front of you who's scrolling on their phone or on their laptop is enough for you to be distracted to not learn something. Yeah, so for me, for example, like, if I was sitting in a class, my classes, sometimes I had 3-hour lectures.
Right.
And it was so easy if someone was just scrolling on Facebook or Instagram and sitting in front of me. I'm not going to listen. I'm going to watch you scroll.
And also, when you're sitting in the front, you're making eye contact with the professor.
Yeah.
And the professor knows you exist. So when you're going in for office hours, when you're asking questions, there's that relationship, and that professor wants you to do better. Like, it's very straightforward. Put yourself in the professor's shoes. You have a bunch of students. One student's sitting at the very back, chilling with their friends, scrolling. Another student is sitting in the front, giving you eye contact, trying to understand the material. Who are you going to be more, like, zealous about helping, and who are you going to go above and beyond to support? The one who's barely listening to your class, or the one who's sitting in the front trying their best but just doesn't get the material, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say that if you could do these two things, it's very likely, it's very likely you won't be in the statistic. I think a lot of people are smart. People are smart, man. It's just people don't have sort of maybe the persistence to get all the way there. It's like, especially when you have a setback.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times, obviously, again, there's many different factors onto why people can drop out, but I know at least at our university, they kind of try to prune the first year students, right? Trying to remove the lowest of the crop.
Yeah.
And so that it was smaller class sizes in the second, third, and fourth years, right?
Right.
So I think not being able to have a proper studying habits right after the first set of midterms can really predict your downfall, whether or not you're going to stay in university or not, right? And
great point.
Learning from your experiences from your midterms can really be what differentiates you between being a dropout or succeeding and finishing your degree, right? Because a lot of times people end up in probations and they don't learn from their mistakes in terms of studying. And then this ultimately can lead to them being kicked out of the university because they weren't able to pull up the grades. Right? So at least there's, as I mentioned, many different factors, but if you can at least control one of those factors, your studying habits, that really has a massive impact on whether or not you're going to be kicked out of university or you choose to drop out.
Yeah, and I think we're wrapping up here. One thing that we kind of touched on, but we danced around, and it's something that's difficult to control, is your stability.
Mm-hmm.
If you are stable, you have a stable household, you have stable income, you have stable environment. I would, if we looked at this like 12-month dropout rate, it might be like 5%, 10%,
Mm-hmm.
3%, because it's just a matter
Yeah.
of interest. Usually,
Yeah.
I don't think universities often like a matter of ability, like pure ability.
Yeah.
Because yeah, again, like I said before, people are capable. It's more about can you stabilize.
Yeah.
But let's leave it there.
Yeah. I think maybe it would be fun to kind of dig into more of these statistics, look at it based off of like different variables of like race, sex, and stuff like that. I think that
Oh,
could be a fun conversation to have and trying
yeah, that
to
actually could be.